Is he really someone who holds a high designation into Toastmasters? Because I still remember meeting this person while he was the district director. And the moment I met him, I felt like, oh, he's just like any other or the member of our club. He was so humble, very affable, and you can easily approach to him. And it was a pleasure experience, a delight experience meeting him. Now, he is currently a part of six clubs: Corporate Club, Smedley Chapter 1, Take Debate Club, Podcasters Club, Apna Hindi Club, and Advanced Malayalam Club. He loves Toastmasters, and he says that it brings the best in him. And he thought that Toastmasters is bringing him in touch with like minded people who are keen on learning and sharing. By profession, he's into advertising and marketing for the last 23 years. Then one more thing which is very interesting is that he believes that it is debatable whether we need to learn more or unlearn more by either way, because that's what Toastmasters is doing to him. And he wants to keep doing both at the same time. So please put your hands together for a very interesting soul full of wisdom and wit, but yet composed, cool, and calm. So please put your hands together for our immediate District Director DTM Robin to take care of this show's Candid Conversation of Division L as the host. Over to you, DTM Robin.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Midat, for those wonderful words. I want to believe you, really. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Now, today is a special day because we are doing something very different. We've not done this before. So, candid conversations with two accomplished authors, I would say. Now, I call them accomplished authors because they are Toastmasters, and today they have published books in their name. I want to take you back to an incident which happened to me when I was in school. I had an English teacher, and she used to love this quote, and she used to use this quite often. It read, "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read." Famous words by Mark Twain. I think when we look back, it still seems very profound. But I think there is something even more profound. If, for example, we would all listen to our English teachers and would read voraciously from school, and we are all now 40 plus, just imagine the amount of books we would have read. What would you do with that knowledge? Will you keep it in your head? I think your head may not be enough to contain all that knowledge. So what do? You need to write. And I think as Toastmasters, we are all writers. Let me tell you how. The writer in you is actually the person who puts you on the stage. The writer in you is the person who allows you to be a good speaker. So we are all writers, and we cannot afford to have anybody else write for us, right? So we definitely need to be good writers. That is a given. Now let me also share something very interesting. I think at some moment of time in our lives, maybe even for a fleeting moment, I'm sure all of us would have aspired to have a book published in our name. Having a book, imagine, in a library which is written by us, in a bookstore which is written by us, or a book in Amazon which is written by us. I'm sure it must have passed in your mind too. If nothing else, maybe in your bucket list. In my bucket list, definitely I have it right on top, writing a book. Now, how, what, where is what we are going to find out today, because today we have two Toastmasters who have actually made this dream, aspiration into reality. So today we are going to learn from them how these two Toastmasters who attend meetings like us have a published book in their name. So that's the theme today, or the objective today, to find out how to get starting on writing a book, publishing a book, maybe marketing a book. So all that we'll find out today. And today we have two brilliant panelists with us. And as I said, both of them are Toastmasters. So I will now introduce both of you, and then we'll start the interview. And all the audience is welcome to ask questions. In the end, we have a section where all of you will be allowed to ask questions. You can send your messages or questions to me on private chat. So to begin with, I would like to introduce my first panelist. Now, there is no particular order of choosing because she's going to be interviewed first. So I'm introducing Toastmaster Michelle Mehta. Now, Toastmaster Michelle Mehta is someone who is based in California, USA. And I first time met her on the virtual stage as I became a member of Smedley Chapter 1. And there she was. And by the way, Smedley Chapter 1 is the first official Toastmaster club in the world. And it happens to be in California. And it is part of the Founders District. And when I attended this club, I was told that there are some amazing members here with 50 years, not life experience, but Toastmaster experience. Can you believe that? And then here you have a girl who is all of maybe 30 years old, and she's the president of that club. I was shocked. I mean, that's quite amazing. She's just a 3-year-old as compared to a 50-year-old experienced Toastmaster. So that's something amazing. Yeah. Now, I will also like to share some other background about her. Okay. Now, as I said, she is based in California, but she originally belongs to Gujarat. Her parents are from Gujarat, India, and she speaks 3 languages fluently: Gujarati, Hindi, and English. And interestingly, she says Hindi she has learned by watching Bollywood movies. Wow. So now I know how you can be an author. If you have seen Bollywood movies, you have a future. Now, let me also tell about her interesting professional life. She is a certified professional coactive coach, an associate certified coach through International Coach Federation, and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Don't be confused, as we call it NLP. So she's a NLP practitioner. Michelle Mehta is, as you all know, the best-selling author of 2 books. She is also a teen confidence expert, and she is a celebrity coach. And by the way, she has coached celebrities like James Heaven, who happens to be the brother of the famous Hollywood actress Angelina Jolie. She speaks to teens all over USA about overcoming peer pressure, bullying, and low self-worth. And through her talks, she increases their confidence to live a life they fully love and admire. She plans to share this message in near future on the TEDx stage. So all the best to you. And ABC Television has something interesting to say about Michelle. It says she has overcome unthinkable obstacles and is one of the most successful teen coaches in 2020. So there you have it, her experience. And then let's talk about Michelle Mehta, the author. Michelle has co-authored 2 books. The first one is Yes, I Can. The other one is Shakti Awakening. Yes, I Can is about secrets of successful people. So if you wonder what are the things successful people do not wonder anymore. Read this book. You will hear from 22 inspiring people from around the world sharing their proven success secrets with you. It is like having 22 mentors coaching you directly. Shakti Awakening is about women. It's a saga of 24 ordinary women who rose up and showed courage in everyday life, redefining feminism. Everyday women like her and some of the others who are here have woken up to their true Shakti and showing what women empowerment is actually about. Wow. Now, this is first of our panelists. Now let's get on with the second of our panelists, who probably is a more known face here, Toastmaster Samir Geepee. Now, let me tell you, the first time I met him, he made a huge impression on me. And how did he do that? By holding my hand for longer than rest of anybody had held my hand. So I shook his hand and my gaze shifted to the other person, but he didn't let my hand go. So I was wondering, did I do something wrong? I looked back at him and he said, I'm still here. I want to talk to you. So I was like, yes, I want to talk to you, Samir. So he said, Robin, I'll give you a tip. You have very nice smile, but you leave your gaze too soon. You need to give that person a minute. So I said, thank you so much for the tip. And I knew that he had something special in him, and he has. So let me tell you what is special in him. Now, his career, before his career, he calls himself a bit of a nomad. And now he does that because he says he's born and brought up in Qatar, and he has spent maximum time in his professional life in China. 8 years in China, came back to Qatar, then came back to Dubai, went back to Qatar. Now he's in Dubai since 2016. And he says he hopes to be in Dubai for some time, but you never know. I may just pack my bags and go, because what inspires him is his need to travel, need to meet new people and gather new experiences. So there you have it. That's how he's an author and we are not. So we need to do more of that. And he is crazy about creation. And he talks about something very interesting he did early on in his career. He used to frame people. Don't get me wrong, he didn't really frame people. He framed their photographs, which they gave him with some nice glass and wooden borders. So that is something that excited him. By the way, he happens to be a civil engineer from National Institute of Technology, Calicut. He has been continuing his urge to be creative. He's done many more things, which I'll tell you. And he is also an NLP practitioner, like our first panelist, Michelle Mehta, and he's a life coach. And he also does something very interesting. He has something called Young Leaders Mastermind, which is an annual program with almost 52 weeks of coaching for young people. So that's something he does. But his amazing skill is his ability to converse. He's an amazing conversationalist, and he is an astute listener. And you just need to talk to him once, and that will be very evident. He asks you some brilliant questions. Thankfully, today he's on the other side of it. And he is married, and he has two sons, a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old. And he has, most importantly, published two books. One is The Awesome Planner, and other is The Awesome Cup. So that is about the two panelists today. So are you both ready? Okay, great. Is the audience ready? Okay, before we disable chat, I just want to know how many of you among the audience wants to be an author, or has some idea, or has any time in your bucket list put that you want to be an author. Just raise your just show the thumbs up sign either on the video or on the reaction button. So let us see. Wow, brilliant. So I think we have all aspiring authors here. So that is wonderful. That is amazing. So we will try and dig out as much information as we can from these brilliant people here, our panelists. So we will start with you, Michelle. Is that okay? You want to say hello to everyone?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure visiting your division, and most importantly, everybody on the other side of the globe. So you guys know it is 11:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So as much as you guys are waking up and getting out of yoga, I am having a late night Friday night beyond our curfew time all over the world with you guys. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michelle. So good evening, good morning to all of you again. I will start with questioning Michelle. So Michelle, your first question is,
yes,
you are very young. You don't have as much life experience as some of the others here in the group. So what made you start writing? Because all of us are still reading. So what made you start writing?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you so much for asking. My journey is quite different. I used to never be a reader. My parents would always tell me, you need to read. And they would make me read finance books. As a finance major, they thought that would be an important thing. I, on the other hand, had a different plan. I loved personal development. And the only reason why I loved personal development was because I thought that's what life is about, is understanding other people's lives. And in 2007, I went shopping at a local bookstore, and I invested about $200 and bought 20 books home. And my parents said, you've never read. What on earth are you going to do with these books? Well, it took a couple layoffs. It took a couple transition in corporate America to realize that these books that I bought in 2007 needed to be touched. And I made it a goal to increase my confidence to read. And I said, you know what? To set a confidence, you need to have a goal. So I created a goal of reading one book a month. And in 2013, I started. And the more books I read about personal development, the more I aspired to be a better communicator, a better listener, and most importantly, a better human being. As I started my coaching career, I heard a lot of people say you need to be credible. And the first step to be credible is that you need to have some kind of content being published. I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? They say you need to have a book underneath your name. I had a plan to write a book, and it was not to be delivered in 2020. It was to be delivered 5 years from 2020, like 2025, 2026. I had the opportunity last year in 2019 through a LinkedIn connection from an individual living in California that said, I have to talk to you. Let's connect. And I thought, oh dear God, what am I going to invest money in now? Because I was already invested so much money in 2019. I thought, okay, what am I going to say yes to now? Her product was, I will help you become an international bestselling author in 90 days. All you have to do is write one chapter. And I'm like, what does that even mean? She goes, you just need to write about your life. Have you gone through some hardships? I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I had a failed corporate America career. Unlike normal people, I've been laid off before the age of 25. She was great. Write about that. Write about that journey that you had. And I did. Started writing. I went through 4 drafts and I had 30 days to write this chapter and delivered it. And then 90 days later, I realized that this book was going to be published on Amazon. And that is how I was able to, 22 of us was able to collaborate and get this book on Amazon. And through our network of working with people from outside of the United States, we had authors from Australia, Canada, Malaysia, India. And because of that network, we were able to make it an international bestselling author. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Michelle. That is very, very elaborate. And I think you've covered a lot of things. But I want to ask you something interesting. So now, unlike Samir, who has written his own exclusive book, you are somebody who has co-authored 2 books. Now, that is something probably for all the listeners here. It is, something in between. So if you still have time in writing a book, you can always collaborate like Michelle did and co-author a book. So that is wonderful. Now, what I want to ask you, Michelle, is it's not as easy as it sounds. Even to write one chapter of a book, you need to collaborate with so many people and you need to be good. Only then can your chapter be published. So my question to you is, did anybody mentor you in this process of you becoming from a reader of good books to somebody who actually collaborates and co-authors a book? How did this transformation happen?
Yes. So my friend that reached out to me on LinkedIn Connection said, I'm going to support you in writing your chapter. And I told her, I've never written anything in my life other than speeches for Toastmasters and a couple essays in college. Other than that, I'm not really much of a writer. She said, that's okay. I'm going to give you a questionnaire. Start answering that questionnaire. So I started answering those questions. I sent it back to her. She would now elaborate a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more. And sure enough, I was able to complete those 3,000 words because first I thought 500 words were enough. She goes, nope, you need double that and then double that because she wanted me to write more and then take it out. So it was the process of working with this product manager and helping me realize that, hey, you know what are the steps? And so having that connection with the person that has this whole idea, because it's her idea of this book that wants to get published. It's her network of people that she's reached out to. And so that's how I was able to share my idea and get that support and letting her know that, hey, it's my first time. I don't know anything else. Support me, making sure that I'm on the right path.
Thank you so much. I think, doesn't it sound familiar to all the Toastmasters, what we do with our mentors? So you need to find somebody who has probably written a book, and these 2 people are available now. But I'm sure if you dig deep in Toastmasters, you'll find such people who can help us to write our book or co-author a book. So that is a wonderful suggestion. Now, I want to ask you something. You are a young author. So
yes.
How did you get attention for your book? In the sense, people now want to listen or read, from people who are very established or accomplished. So, when you brought out your book, what did you do to get attention? You're a young author. What did you do?
Yes. So one of the things that worked in my favor was the fact that I love doing Facebook Lives. And I've been consistent from July of 2017 till about February 2020. And so I'd share my ideas through Facebook Lives. So I already had developed a following on Facebook. And the question about the second book, how did that come about? Well, one of the authors of the first book said, I'm starting another project and I'm looking for a global Indian woman. And because she was part of the first book, I added all the authors that were part of the first book as Facebook friends, and I'd comment on their post. And so the second book project manager said, I'm looking for global Indian woman. And I was like, well, I feel like I'm a global Indian woman. So I put that emoji with the hand raising up like shyly. I posted on her post. She sends me a message on Facebook Messenger saying, I'm looking to have you write another chapter. Can you write a chapter on my book? This is the book that I'm collaborating. And so it's not about what you know. It's all about who you know. So having the connection with the first book of 22 authors and then the second book of 24 authors, I was able to create this book. And again, it took 90 days. And because these women were all over the world, again, Canada, Malaysia, India, Australia, we were again able to make it an international best-selling author. And so the way that I promoted it is through my own network. Because in my family, I don't come from a family of authors. I am the first person in my family that's a life coach, that's an entrepreneur. I stayed away from the corporate America path. That's because the corporate America path did not like me. Otherwise, why would they keep laying me off, right? So I had to choose the path of being my own business and starting my own path. And so because of that, I had already gotten the attention. And so when I shared that I'm an author and my book is coming out, my family and my friends started seeing me as, oh my God, you're a big deal. Because they weren't able to achieve it. And here I am achieving it. And so all the naysayers became the yay sayers. That's been my journey.
Thank you. So this is very profound. It's not about how many you know, it's about who you know. So it's brilliant. Your own network. I think all of us here have a huge network. And so, you know, we definitely, have similar advantages like Michelle has. So that is amazing. Now, what I want to ask you is something. Now, since you've already published 2 books, is there anything that you would have done differently if you knew what you know now?
I honestly would not do anything differently, as cliche as that sounds, because when I realized that I was surrendering to this opportunity of I'm just going to be the best coach that I can be, these doors opened. It wasn't like I was Googling how to write a book. It wasn't like I was Googling how to publish a book. These opportunities just came to me because of my being of who I am. People saw me as an authentic person. People saw me as someone that was real without any filters. And so that automatically allowed me to even have the ABC article get published. It was through a LinkedIn connection because my content was consistent. And so it wasn't like I was wondering like, oh, I'm going to write a book. How am I going to do that? I just allowed open arms, always said yes to things, and just had the opportunity come to me. So even when the opportunity did come to me, I was shocked. I was like, you want me to be an international best-selling author? That's even a real thing? And my project manager was like, yeah, that is a total real thing. And I've done 20 of these already. So I know what I am. All you got to do is trust the process. And so I let the mind go, trusted my heart, poured my heart out, and let the books do its magic.
Wow. So I think investing in your network and being yourself, two very good messages, Michelle. That's wonderful. Now I have another question. Now tell us about the role of Toastmaster. You've been a Toastmaster now for almost 3+ years. So how has Toastmasters helped you to be the author you are today? What is the role of
Yes.
Toastmasters, or how have you helped any Toastmasters being an author? That is something I want to ask you.
Yes. I just finished my 3 years, 2-month anniversary with Toastmasters. So
Okay.
I am very much a new person. And I think the way Toastmasters has helped me is because, as we know, we have to write speeches. And my competent communicator, this is before Pathways, this manual, and I literally took it to the T because I love public speaking. I just didn't know how to write for Toastmasters. And so I wrote out every single speech, and I used to have pause 1, 2, 3 after every few sentences, making sure I slow down and understand that. And through that process, I was able to realize that I needed to have descriptive languaging. I needed to have flowery languaging. It didn't need to sound like an English essay. It needed to sound like an experience. And through the speech writing and sharing stories, when it came down to writing, it was very like the ideas were already flowing through me. It wasn't like I had to think about an idea, what am I going to write? So through the Toastmaster experience and sharing about my life and my career, I was able to just get in front of Microsoft Word and just type away. However, the night before, I would dream about what I was going to write. So the night before, I would dream about it. I would think about it. I was like, okay, this is the type of story I want to write. And then the next day morning, I'd open my laptop and then start typing away and just let the words come through. And I wouldn't even edit it because that's the editor's job. My job is to get everything from here onto the document, onto the laptop, and just let it do its magic. And so that's what had helped me, was to just surrender. You know, we talk about surrender a lot in our world. Surrender just means letting the mind go, because logic is what messes me up. I don't know about you guys, but logic really messes me up. My heart is where it's open. I'm an emotional person. I've been known to be a crybaby. I get attached to movies quickly. I get attached to the characters. And so I just have to let my heart be open. And by doing that, ideas just flow through me easily. Because there's no judgment. Mind is what creates the judgment. Heart, there is no judgment. A soul is a soul is a soul, right? Whether you're old or young or man or woman, a soul is a soul. So I just started seeing my words like it was a soul.
That is again very, very interesting, because I think as Toastmasters, our juices are already flowing. We are digging, we are introspecting, and every day we are exposing our soul to our fellow Toastmasters. So I think that's the way Toastmasters has helped you. That is brilliant, Michelle. I think you, you put it very nicely. So Toastmasters, I think we are already on our way. We just need to put pen to paper and leave the rest to a good editor, and we can always refer. I know Michelle can tell us more about editing. Okay, now I'll ask you a difficult question. What was the most challenging part of being an author?
I think the most challenging part, 100% in true honesty, not that I'm not saying anything out of honesty, is the voices that my parents would say as I'm writing this chapter. What would their thoughts be? Am I being a good daughter by exposing myself? You know, as an Indian society, I don't know about you guys, but I come from a very judgmental Indian society, especially because I can get 40 people within a 5-mile radius. So everybody lives in the same city as I do, just to give a perspective. And so when I'm doing something, it's like all eyes on me. Not only that, I'm the first girl in my generation, in my entire family, that's born outside of India. So there's a lot of like, oh, I wonder what Michelle is up to, you know, like a lot of looking at me, right? And so writing these chapters and writing these thoughts, I always thought, am I putting the family to shame? Am I speaking my most honest truth? What are they gonna say? See, the book, Yes, I Can, that chapter was mostly about my career and how I came out of the layoffs and why I got laid off and the bullying that I experienced in middle school and high school. Shakti Awakening is how I got my power. It's about a relationship that I had with a narcissist. It's about me finding my own strength in that relationship and finding coaching as a career. 2 different topics, 2 different ideas, 2 different audiences. Shakti Awakening is about women finding their power. There's a lot of dark stuff that these women have written about: overcoming cancer, overcoming rape victims, overcoming molestation, overcoming dating. And then there's Yes, I Can, which is about finding resilience and courage and persistence and following your heart and following your passion. So I was more open about sharing Yes, I Can with the world, and a little bit fearful about what about Shakti Awakening, because the audience is like that. So the hardest part was being true to myself, over exaggerating where I needed to over exaggerate, under exaggerating where I needed to under exaggerate, and just had to explain to my parents over and over again, I have to over exaggerate to create a bigger picture. This isn't about me and my chapter. This is about creating an impact in the world, because women need to showcase what they're going through. Women need to talk about these things, and that's why these women have come together. So if you don't want to buy the book, if you don't want to read the book, fine by me. I'm doing it because I come from a place of vulnerability, and vulnerability is everything in this world. And that's what's important to me in 2020. So that was the hardest part in the second book, was about creating that impact and standing beyond what my chapter is about. It's that why. It's that powerful why as to why we all got together.
Thank you, Michelle. I think this was, again, very profound. exposing your vulnerability is something very human, and because all of us are human, we all have gray, and we like to hear about other people, and we want to know stories. So I think that's amazing. So congratulations to you. One final
Thank
question
you.
before I bring Samir into it, because I'm sure Samir, being an astute listener, would have some questions up his sleeve. But before I go to him, I have one last question. What's your message to all the aspiring authors here? Because there are a lot of people here who all raise
Yes.
their hands, so they all want to be authors. What's the message to from author Michelle Mehta to all the aspiring authors here?
I would say start with journaling, because that will allow you to get your thoughts onto a piece of paper. Start with the gratitude journal, 5 things that you're grateful for. That's how I started. Then go into 5 things that you're celebrating every single day. What are the things that you're celebrating? And then go on to writing love letters to yourself, to your family members. Do the exact opposite and write angry letters to your family members or to yourself. Just pour your heart out and know that this pen and paper is with you and yourself. And the more honest you are with you and yourself, the easier it's going to be to write your book. Because all it needs is an intro and a conclusion and a couple other points, like a speech, right? Couple sub points, topic points, expand on it, explore it. And every single speech that you are speaking can turn into a book. So follow your heart, follow your dreams. And if it is a dream, go after it, because it can be achievable and it can be attainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much for your words. And now I'm going to bring Samir in, but I want to tell you something about Samir, which he said yesterday, which is something Michelle also just said. Whoever is a DTM or a senior Toastmaster already has a book in place, because you have written so many speeches. Just make sure that those things are compiled together. And like Samir said yesterday, I think all of us may already have a book ready. So that is something he contributed. Now we will ask Samir. You are free to ask a few questions of Michelle. So be soft on her, because she gets a turn after your interview. So remember that. So over to you, Samir.
I don't ask tough questions. Come on, Robin.
Yes.
Questions are easy. Probably the answers are difficult. I don't know, but the questions are usually easy. Michelle, kudos to you, really. I mean, I wish I had written a book at your age, and I had explored life and journaled and done all the stuff that you are doing right now. Took a lot of life away before I could actually do something like what you have achieved at a young age. So kudos to you on that. Writing, there are multiple ways of writing. You could write an autobiography, you could write somebody else's story, you could write something completely of fiction. When you were thinking of writing a book in 2025, was it still the biography that you wanted to write, or was it something else that you might have actually picked, right? Because this came as a chance opportunity to you, right?
Yes,
So
I always wanted to write a book about my dating life. I always tell my friends, I have a title in place, I just don't know what the content is going to be about. So the title that I was going to write, it was going to be Don't Worry About Your Ex, Worry About Your Next. Now, many of you guys are thinking, what the heck does that mean? But it's actually going to be about my dating life and how crazy my dating life has been. And so when I was thinking about writing a book, I was like, well, let's put all my dating experience together and make it into a book. Well, now I realized that instead of making that into a book, I'd rather just do a vagina monologue and talk about that instead, because that's more easier and more fun, and the audience can relate and have a laugh at it. And rather than reading this book and going, oh my God, this is just one crazy date after another. And I thought, when I find the right man, guys, I'm still single. When I find the right man, and I actually have a ring and I have a family, then I can have a happy ending to my book. So yeah, that my book was going to be about relationships and dating and things like that. But I'm not really sure what it's going to be about now.
but if you want to write a book like that, I'm sure you will have plenty of contributors to that book for every chapter that you want.
Yes, dating in 2020 with COVID and coronavirus, it's been quite a journey, let me tell you.
Yep.
Samir, you can have one more question.
Yes. Are you happy with the outcome of what has come out with the two books? Or do you think that it could have been better, different? Are you having any thoughts after it is out there? Because during the process, you're being very judgmental. After also, you tend to be judgmental in so many ways. As a creative person, I know this myself, there's always room for improvement. As Toastmasters, we always feel, okay, I could have done this, I could have done this. Do you have that feeling with what you have actually produced and kept out there?
I think with my first book, there was a lot of fear about what will my parents say that I became an international bestselling author. You know, it's a path less traveled. I don't come from a family of authors. So all of a sudden I was going to say, I'm going to publish a book, invest $1,000 to get this project going. It all sounded a little cuckoo. So maybe I'd have told them to read my chapter the first time around, get on there a little bit of an input before I just went down and published it. And at the same time, I feel like I needed to take that risk to showcase who I am, you know, to showcase my strength. And also just for the experience, because for me to be an author wasn't to be an author, it was to build credibility for my coaching career. So my why was quite different. My why was to show when I go in front of an audience that, hey, I'm an international bestselling author, that I'm not some Yahoo off the street. Even though I am a Yahoo off the street, I'm still an author. There's a little bit of a credibility there. That's what I was building. And so that's what my why was all about. And yeah, of course, I could have written the chapter better. I could have proofread better. I could have gotten more opinions. I could have done a different take. At the end of the day, it's not about that, right? It's about the journey, right? It's about climbing that mountain, taking that risk and reaching to the top, right? It doesn't matter if you climb the smallest hill, like your driveway, or the tallest mountain, like Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest, right? It's about what mountain's in front of me and able to achieve that and not running away from it. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you, Michelle.
so as I said, Samir, your questions are pretty easy, but the answers are quite interesting. So thank you so much for asking those questions. And thank you, Michelle, for being very open. And I think you've given a lot of ideas to people here. So thank you so much. Now
Thank
we
you for the
will
opportunity.
shift our focus to Samir. But Michelle, you can take notes because at the end of his interview, you get to ask him some tricky questions, yeah? And make it really tricky because he's supposed to be somebody who can speak very well. So let's test him out. Okay, so Samir, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Samir, your first question is, how does it feel to be on the other end of the table and somebody else asking you the questions? How does it feel?
This sounds like Kaun Banega Crorepati, you know. I just hope at the end I win some money, but it's good.
I don't know about money, but you will win a lot of hearts if you are very transparent and you share all the knowledge you have. That's what we want. Okay, so
Always a
now the
pleasure.
first official question to you is, describe for us the feeling of being a published author. Now be very honest and tell us, how does it feel to be a published author with 2 books in your name, where we can even buy it from Amazon? So how does it feel to be a published author?
I don't. So the honest answer is, it feels satisfying. It feels satisfying that. So my why was not to become an international best-selling author. My why was not to become famous by writing those books. My why was to actually put out there something that was created, and then it's like, let the world decide whether it's good enough for them or not. And I was not on that journey of doing the marketing to promote it to become something that, you know, so my journey is a little different from that. I'm more on the creative side, and I'm more on the side of having the personal satisfaction. It's just like any artist. When you do a painting, you finish doing the painting, and after you're done with the painting, you don't look at the painting anymore. You move on to the next painting, and you just start creating the next thing that you want to do. And that's been my journey. So it is satisfying for a reason that both the books that I have, one which is a planner, it's unique. There's nothing on the market like that. The approach that it has, the way it has been created, the way it has been designed, everything is, if I may say so, impressive, because I like it. And that is satisfying for me. So that's number one from answering your question. The second book, again, was written deeply because I wanted people to understand my philosophy. And more than people, I wanted my kids to have something. If I'm gone today, if I could be gone just like this, we all could be gone just like this in a flash. And my message is there for them to last an eternity. And for that reason, again, it's very satisfying.
So that's amazing, you know, Samir. So you've written what you've written for yourself. So now that is very important to all of you who are hearing. Your why can just be you, because you want to write a book. Even if nobody reads it, it's all right, because you wanted to write a book. You should write a book. So that is something amazing. Now, Samir, we need to know from you, when did this whole process start, and when did you decide that, yes, I can write a book? How much time did it take for you to write this book? We're not talking about the planner, we're talking about your book. How did it come about? When did the thought start? And finally, when did you bring it out?
So that's a very interesting question, because again, like I said, I was not really thinking about a book for the longest period of time. I was looking at the message. How can I bring out a concrete message for people to read and change their lives and transform their lives? So back in 2002, I had visited this farm in Pondicherry called Oroville. And it was a gap that I took during while I was looking for a job. And I stayed on this farm for quite some time. And it was very transformative for me, because it just made me see life. I met people, I had conversations, very deep, interesting conversations that impacted me at a very deep level. And as soon as I came back from that place, I put down my thoughts into a narrative conversation style of writing. I put down some ideas, and it became a piece that was about 20 pages, I believe, 25 pages of a book that I wrote. And I shared it with a few people, and they liked it. And they said, this is nice, but this is not complete. This cannot become a book. It could become something like a manifesto possibly, or something like that, but it was still not there yet. And I would always go back to it. And every time I meet someone interesting, or if I find someone who loves to read, I would share it with them. And it would allow them to understand what my philosophy was. And I just, even recently, I mean, about 2 years back, I went back to it and I was reading it. And I was like, wow, what I wrote in 2002 is still relevant to me today. And so it was in my conscious awareness for the last 18 years, I would say, of writing this and completing it in some form or shape. And that drive that I have to finish this, I have to put it out there in some form, was always at the back of my mind. So last year when I went for my college reunion, and we attended a college reunion after 20 years, and we were sitting and 2 days of, meeting friends and having conversations and all that stuff. And I came back. And one of the things that I struggled the most with writing a book was having a framework. So how do I position my ideas? I knew I wanted to write fiction because I didn't want it to look like a preachy, or I didn't have a lot of research-based evidence. So a lot of books that are there is more research-based. If you look at anything, and if anyone wants to write a book, I would say the first step is to ask oneself, what is it that you like to research a lot about? What do you read a lot about? And that is a clear indicator of what you could be writing about, because you would have collected so many evidence. And then what you do with all those researches, you would put your own twist, you would put your own perspective or your own angle, and then you will come up with something that you can present. So you will ask yourself, okay, I've read 10 books about branding, or 20 books or 30 books about branding. Now from all this, what am I taking that is not there in these 20 books? And suddenly you see that, yes, I have a clear value addition to give to someone. It could be as simple as, there is no book written on branding for teenagers, and teenagers, you have to start at a very young age. So you've read all the books, but nothing is there for teenagers, and suddenly you can write a book. Robin's already nodding his head. I can see, yes, his book is coming out on branding for teenagers. But what I've done over there is I've just married the two principles that I know you personally, I know that you love so much, right? You love engaging and inspiring teenagers, and you love branding. Those are two things that you're really core and good at. So that suddenly becomes your area of interest, and you can write about that. You can then choose whether to write it in a story format, or in an inspiring format, or as a book like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So there are different formats, and you pick your genre you want to write. So for me, what I struggled with was the context and how to put. So when I went from a college reunion and I came back, I was like, I'm going to use this. And it was all fresh in my mind. So 2 days we spent from morning till evening, and I used the entire context of that setting for my book. So after I came back, it took me exactly 30 days to write my book, because I knew the content, I knew the context. I just had to marry the two and put it into an interesting format. And that's what I did with Awesome Cup.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Samir. It was very elaborate, but I think it clarified a lot of areas that, there is a person who has been thinking about his book for 18 years, but he finally wrote it in 30 days. And there is somebody who is all of 30-year-old and she could write the book in 90 days. So it's all what you want to do. But then your book is always there in your mind because your thoughts are never stopping. You just need to put a framework to it and start writing. So that is amazing. Samir, now we have something more challenging coming your way. Yes.
The more challenging, the more elaborate, huh? Go ahead.
Okay. Now, the question is many people watching would want to know, how do you know you have an idea that can be a book? How do you actually, identify that you get so many ideas, so many thoughts that this actually can be a book? How do you do that? How do you nail that part? Because like you said, branding for teenagers is a good idea, but I don't know whether that's the book I should start with. So how do you do that?
Very good question. So what's an idea? An idea is a light bulb moment, right? So that is a clear indicator that it is an idea. Now, what would stop one from doing it is the judgment that they impose on themselves and on the idea, and the need that it has to become best-selling, and the need that everybody should read it, and the need that it has to become popular, and the need that it has to be accepted. Now, if that is important to you, then it's a very steep road, and you can actually hire a marketing agency to make any book that you write into a popular book. If that is the goal, then you can achieve that goal. If you want to achieve the goal of writing a book that is really meaningful, then all you have to do is go and do deep research, deep work. There is a book called Deep Work right now, actually, which is a fantastic read as well. So ask yourself. So what I asked myself when I was writing the book is, who would want to read this book, and why am I writing this book? And who would be my audience for this book? And would my audience that I'm thinking of would be interested in a topic like this? And then you can go and actually ask a few of those people and present the idea and see what they say. And I think there is no right and wrong. There is just a choice that you make. And Michelle was talking about something which was very profound. I wanted to ask that question. And then you asked your last question about challenge, and she spoke about journaling and all the stuff. The idea of authenticity. If you're very authentic with yourself, then the answer will reveal to you by itself whether the idea is good or not, and how do you do it. We have too many voices in our head. The answer is to actually put it down on paper and then look at it from a third person angle. And then suddenly the answers will reveal to you whether you should work on this, and if the project is pulling you towards it, or you have to push yourself to do the project. For me, the writing for 30 days, it was pulling me. Every single day, 7 p.m., I would go to a McDonald's cafe, which was 24 hours open. I would order a black coffee and nothing else. And then I would sit over there and I would write for 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours. One night, I stayed up till 4 a.m. in the morning to write one particular chapter, which was, so you introduced me as a nomad, but there's another term that I would use in the context of writing. I'm a pantser. I don't know if you've heard of this word called pantser. P-A-N-T-S-E-R. So P-A-N-T-S-E-R, what it means is, let me give you the Google definition. It says someone who flies by the seat of their pants, meaning they don't plan out anything or plan very little. All right. So I don't plan too much. I knew I had an overarching picture that I had to finish a book, and this is the context and everything. And I had a framework. But this is how I deliver my speeches. I do my TMOD roles, do my everything. I have a framework in my mind, and then I go there and I be myself. So when I was writing the book, I was approaching it the same way. So the ideas were cooked for like 18, 20 years. In fact, I think the seed of who I am and the book and everything came up from a book that I read when I was 18 years old, that laid the foundation for my life in so many ways. The book is called The Fountainhead, if you have read it, by Ayn Rand. It's a very inspiring book. So it laid the foundation for me as a person in so many ways, I feel. And what was your question?
Thank you, Samir. I was waiting
Where
for
am
you
I?
to ask this question. Now I will go to another question so that you've elaborated quite a lot and we've learned a lot. Now the next question is, this is a little bit more process oriented question. If we ask you what are the clear stages of actually going about writing a book, how would you explain that? And I'm again repeating the question: what are the stages of writing a book? If somebody was to ask you, how would you kind of break it down?
So what I would say, it's an excellent question. And right now, if I'm going to write my second book, I would use so many of those things which I didn't think about while writing my first book or thinking of the first book. Uh, I would say pick your genre first. The best thing to do would be to go to a bookstore and ask yourself, alongside which books would you like your book to be placed? In which category would you want your book to be placed in a bookstore? Do you want to be placed next to a Dan Brown book? Do you want to be placed next to a Louis Hay book? Do you want to be placed next to which book would you want to be placed against? The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I would love my book to be placed next to The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari or Who Moved My Cheese. And I found that as the context of, the genre of what I wanted to be doing. So identifying that is principle or key, so that it gives you a clear indication of what your writing style you want it to be, what others are doing well, etc. The second is ask yourself, what is the central theme of the book? Is it murder? Is it mystery? Is it suspense? Is it motivational book? What is the central idea again that you want to be writing the book about? Next is what we have been trained in Toastmasters also, which is creating a mind map. So create a mind map of the overall book. So what I did before I started the book was, my book, This Awesome Cup, I knew 5 characters. And the 5 characters, one of them was a coach, and then the remaining were 4 characters, which were the friends. And what I did was, initially I created characters for those 4, who they were, what they were, and all that stuff. And then I started building on that. And as I was writing and going along into the story, I created a 6th one. And it was just beautiful how everything just evolved by itself. So mind map is another way that you can actually structure your thing. And then let the process flow through you. There is no hard and fast rule of how you write a book. I feel is just that an easy way to write it is, if you are not very good at writing, but if you're very good at speaking, then speak into a recorder. Just speak. And once you speak, you can put it into a software called temi.com, temi.com. It'll make everything into a written format. It'll transcribe the whole audible into a script. Once you have the script, then you can start editing it and working on it, and then seeing how you can actually make it into chapters. So one of the things that I did with my book was, I made each chapter very small. It made it easy for the reader to actually pick it up and read a chapter and then move to the next chapter and then move to the next chapter, and leave an element of intrigue towards the end of each chapter so that people want to move to the next. So almost everyone who picked up the book, they finished the book in a day or 2 max. They were like, it's a very quick read, very easy read. So again, the thought is for the audience who you're writing for. And since you've asked a tricky question, I'm going to elaborate a little more over here. This was yesterday in Podcasters, right? We had this interview with Sid, an RJ, and he was asked a question of how do you speak to, and in Toastmaster, what you do is you speak to a huge audience. On radio, he says, speak to one. The same. 5-10 people don't read a book together. One person reads a book by themselves, right? So write for that one person. Write to the one person who you want to be reading it. So do you want your son, your friend, your boss, your colleague? Who? Think of a name and start writing in a manner that they would understand and they would be able to decipher the message of your book. And the moment you know who you're writing for, it will just inspire you to write, and write very fast actually, because you're speaking to one person. You're not thinking about it being accepted by 100 or 1,000 people. So I use this technique actually when I'm writing. I think, who am I writing for? And I'm speaking of communicating. That's why my book is also very conversational style, because I am actually conversing with someone, and I use that approach to write, and it becomes so much more easier for me. I'll rest my case here, Your Honor.
Thank you, Samir. I let you speak because whatever you were saying is actually quite profound. I will just, quickly repeat it. Where would you like to have your book placed in a bookstore is a mind-blowing metaphor for how to start thinking about your book. Great. And then you spoke about your central theme, mind map, characters, speaking into a audio system, and then of course writing for one person. So I think all are extremely profound ideas in terms of writing a book. Now, there are some people who are getting a little bit restless, that is it only about writing a book? What about after you write a book? How do you get to publish it? So this is again a tough one coming your way. So I have an idea for branding of teenagers. I'm going to write a book for that. Now you need to get me to publish it. So how do I go about it? Help me with it, Samir.
So great question again. It's like what Michelle said. If you can find someone who is in the publishing world, who is connected to publishers, then you can pitch the idea to someone who will actually pay you to write that book. But if you have to be paid to write that book, then you must have a brand following, people who will immediately pick up the book because you wrote it, etc. Right? So if that is the case, then you look the traditional way of publishing, where you look for a publisher who would pay you money down, and then they would take all the rights for the book, and then they would let you write it and give them. But then you'll be under a time pressure, which is also a good thing, because you will have the idea of writing as soon as possible, because they want their material as soon as possible because they paid you for it. Now that again is a very good element actually, which I didn't discuss earlier. If you're really, really writing a book, Michelle would have experienced it, because somebody asked her to write a book because they had to publish it according to a particular date. So there was a deadline. A lot of times what happens when you're writing is you don't set a deadline. You just write and you feel like, I will publish it when I have to, when I'm finished, when I'm done. I wrote the book in 30 days because I set a deadline for myself that I would finish it before the Sharjah Expo, Book Expo. So that was the deadline that I set for myself, that I want to finish it before that is over. Now, what was your question?
It is about publishing. You've written your book.
Yes,
you need to publish the book. So one, you format you already gave us. You pitch to publishers. Yeah, one is a traditional one. Tell us your way. How did you do it?
So I did it where I reached out to self-publishers. Okay. So there is self-publishing that we can do, where you can actually reach out to self-publishing agents and you pay for everything end to end, for proofreading, for editing, for what do you say? Packaging it, for marketing it, for uploading it on Kindle and all those platforms. You pay for everything and then they will do all the work for you. The only catch with this is, if you are going through a self-publishing house, their interest, and this is something that I learned the hard way, all right? Their interest is to get your book out because that is what they are all about. So they're not really keen about you coming out with the best material or content or anything. They will proofread it. They will get your material understood, that it is grammatically correct, but they're not going to analyze and tell you to write this in a better way, because that is not their objective. Their objective is to make sure that you are a published author. That's it, period. But if you really, really want to write something which is phenomenal and you want to have a really good content, then go outside and find someone who is an editor and pay them that extra money. And then get them to edit the book in a professional manner. So there are people who edit books. There are people who edit news articles. There are people who edit different kinds of written material. There are different experts in each area. So someone who edits novels are not the same as someone who edits journalism material. Each one has a different expertise. It would be kind of an investment, but again, it depends on what your end goal is. If your end goal is really to become a writer and a published author and to make money out of it in through speaking engagements or through book alone itself, it all depends on what your end goal is, and you choose your path according to that. So you can be a self-published author, and there are people who have become very, very successful even by self-publishing, where their first book and second book might be self-published. They might have marketed it, it would have reached out to a lot of audience, and then after that, traditional publication houses come and tell them, we're going to pay you, you write for us, we want you to write it. So you could move from self-publishing to traditional publishing in that form. And if your books are really great, then like Chetan Bhagat, who has gone on to become very successful, where his books are turned into movies and all that stuff, is really rewarding. And the most beautiful aspect of publishing and being an author is it's passive income. You write once and it's there for an eternity. Your message is there for eternity. It's so satisfying. I would just use the word satisfying once you have something out there. But you have to think a lot of what you want to really put out there, and you have to be really comfortable in your skin about other people judging you. Not everyone is going to like what you write, and you have to accept that. Not everyone will like what you write. Once you accept that, that's fine. You will know, you will have your audience, you will have your people who loves you and who cares for you and who wants you to be successful, and that's enough. You cannot please everyone, right? If you want to please everyone, what they say is go sell ice cream.
Okay, Samir, now we are coming to a section where I'll be posing a question and you get exactly a minute to answer. Okay, because we have a few questions which you need to cover. So you need to maybe have a glass of water if you want, because this is important. And then we go to Michelle and then we go to the audience. So it's going to be tough now. So if you want to have a glass of water, you can do it now. Yeah. So the next few questions you need to answer quickly, because these are not very elaborate questions, simple questions. Like one of them is about proofreading. How do you get people to proofread your stuff?
Give it to friends who are readers, who love and connect with your message.
Okay, fantastic. Or you do the self-publishing part where people are paid for it and they do it for you. Yeah. And if it's a publisher does it for you, correct?
Yes. The only challenge over here is you can't do it yourself, because you wrote it, so you won't see your mistakes. So you want somebody from the outside to do it.
Fantastic. So that's one question. The next question coming your way is, how do you promote your book?
So you could do Facebook Lives, you could talk about the book, you could read the book, you could do book signings, you could do talks like this, you could get interviewed, you could get people to review the book. There are people in India who have reached out to me saying that they would read my book and review it for 400 rupees, 500 rupees, 700 rupees, different packages that they have. So there are people who actually look for new authors and promote your books. And the most important thing is, again, know your audience and be present in their, hit their eyeballs. So if your book is written for youngsters, go add value to youngsters. They will ask, who is this guy? And immediately the book will pop up, the ideas will pop up, and it will just get its own marketing by itself. So be present in your target audience environment.
Okay. The next question, Samir, coming your way. Does a writer have the freedom to personalize true stories? And how about the permission of those who are part of your story?
Say again?
I'm saying, does the writer have a creative liberty to personalize true stories, in the sense, change it a bit? And how about the permission of those who are part of your story?
Wonderful question. So when I wrote this story, I had a lot of friends who were my batchmates, obviously from college, who had attended the reunion as well, right? And I was doing a book reading. I did this book reading, and friends of mine from college attended the book reading for the entire book. And even those who picked up the book and they read, they were like, when we started reading the book, we were like, who is this character and who is that character? They tried guessing. And what they figured out finally was they just gave up, because no one character was a complete of any character. So it was a mix and a mashup of so many different people. They said, we just gave up on it and started focusing on the story. So it depends on if you want to really do something like that, and if you really are portraying somebody, I think it would be a nice gesture to take their permission and to tell them about it. And once you have them in confidence, once you let them know that you're writing this so that other people may learn from their journey, from their story, it's very inspiring. And I think everyone has something to teach every one of us, right? There's nobody in this world, even a kid teaches us if we are willing to observe and listen and identify what is a lesson in that act. So the moment we are coming from that mindset, there is always some learning. And if our intention is not to portray somebody bad, but to take out and extract the lessons from that, then I think, oh my God, it's a long answer. Sorry, 1 minute, right?
Thank you so much, Samir. No problem. Now I will give the floor to Michelle. Michelle, you have around 3 to 4 minutes. You can ask your 1 or 2 questions, because then we have a long list of audience questions, which I will, direct it to both of you, and we'll put Michelle more on the spot because I think we've put Samir enough. So now a few questions from Michelle. Michelle, you can shoot your questions to Samir. Yes, Samir.
Samir, thank you so much for sharing your journey as you became a 2-time published author. My question to you is, with all of these voices inside of your head, what was the technique that you used to shut them off?
So this is the same as when you go on stage, right? When you go on stage, the first thing that you have fear of public speaking is what will they think? But the moment you start rolling out your content, you don't think about that anymore. The moment you're into your speech, you don't think about what people are thinking. It's right at the very beginning that the thought comes. So the same with writing. When you start writing, the writing takes over and then there's no judgment. And I was just focused on the story so much. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And when you were, when you had your 2 books, were they both next to the Who Moved My Cheese section? Or did you have them in different categories of the bookstore?
Which one, the 2 books?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one was a productivity planner, and that would be in a different section because it's not a book that you can read. It's a book that you can do something with. That it's a doing book. The other one is it's a doing or a being book, I say. And the other one is a book that you consume where you take the stories and see how it applies to your life.
What would be your 3rd book about? If you had to write a 3rd book, what would that be about?
So I know what my 3rd book is about. It's about, the working title of the book is The 7+1 Habits of Wonder-Filling People. So it's about the people in our lives that fill our lives with wonder. And I found that there is no word for that, the people who fill our life with wonder. So I call them the wonder-filling people. And why I call it the 7+1 and not 8 is because the +1 habit is one that connects all the 7 habits. And why I'm writing this book again is because we all need to attract, or we need to identify who are the wonder-filling people in our lives, number one. And when we know what are the qualities that each one of those people have, then the next thing that we do is also ask ourselves, how do we become a wonder-filling person in other people's lives? And I think it's a relevant thing to do and write. And it's aligned with so many things that I'm thinking about. So yeah, that is going to be my next book.
And what is the time frame that you're giving yourself? The first one was about 30 days. Are you doing the same timeline, or is this going to be an extended timeline?
This will be an extended timeline because this one will be more based on research. This one will be more based, it's not going to be a storytelling format, because storytelling format is very easy to write. You just write. But when it's a research, then you have a lot more work to be done around it. And you have a lot more stories to gather and put them into paper. So I've not really set a deadline. I was thinking by next October, I should at least finish the first draft of the book, not publish it, but at least get the first draft out of the book for the entire book. But that is what is, and I want to write a book on poetry as well. I mean, write a book of poems.
So thank you to both of you. Now we are going to open the floor, but what we are going to do is I've already got the questions on the chat box. I'll be choosing some questions and at random giving each of you the questions, so be ready. Yeah, so we'll try and take maximum questions. We have only 15 minutes. So I would request both of you to be concise, precise, and fast so that we can, answer as many questions as possible. And Samir, offline, we can then again go elaborate again. Yeah, so the first question is, how does one kick off this journey as a writer? Is it on personal experiences or something that you've heard and want to educate the reader? I would like Michelle to take this question. It's from
Yes.
Toastmaster Christina.
Thank you, Toastmaster Christina. I say go with your gut. If you feel like you're fully confident in your storytelling about your personal life, go with that. And if you feel like you want to elaborate on an idea like Samir just did about wonder filling, go with that. At the end of the day, it's you with you and you with that one person that Samir suggested, right? It's always writing to that one person, speaking to that one person. So I would say go with your gut, whatever you feel comfortable to, that calls you forward, not the one that you have resistance to, the one that brings you forward and makes you feel your heart with love and your mind can just shut off and be at ease. That's the topic that you should choose. Don't overthink it. It's not worth it.
Thank you, Michelle, for that. Now, the next question is coming your way, Samir. I have live living, and as it passes by, it becomes my past. How do I keep current, documented, and fresh for a book to write later on? You understood the question, I suppose.
Journaling.
So the answer to our area director from 13 is that you journalize it. So thank you so much. That is very quick from Samir. And now we have a question from Toastmaster Varun. I've heard that good writers are good readers. What are your thoughts on this? We've answered this before, but I think I'll give it to Michelle again. Yeah, Michelle, you can.
Yeah, I think if you can pick up a book and read it more than once, that's your key. So if you can go back to a draft and read it multiple times and still feel excited about it, that's your key. You know, when I co-authored both of my books, the first thing I did was just read my chapter. I didn't care about the other people. I just wanted to read my chapter, just to see it again. Even though I've read it over and over again, I've done the draft, I wanted to go back and see what my chapter actually looked out to. So that should be the exciting part of it.
So
right.
try and internalize. So try and internalize that. So amazing. Okay. Now we have a question from.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yes. You can.
So the statement that you said is good. Writers are good readers, right? I think in this context, what it means is it's not just about reading about the story. So right now, when I start reading, what I do is I like to break down on the writing process of what somebody has written also. So good book, I would see how they have actually opened this book, how they have actually created the plot, how they have actually moved. I would start dissecting the story in a way of from a writer perspective. I've started doing this now before I'm writing my next book. So for example, when I'm writing my next book, which I just told you about, I actually went back to the 7 Habits book by Stephen Covey, and I saw what was he doing in that book. So he had 30 pages for each habit, for instance. And so I started dissecting the process of writing of somebody else, and that brings an awareness to you of what you can do for your own writing.
Amazing.
So you become a good writer.
Amazing. So you look at it from a writer's point of view. How would you write that book? So that's a brilliant analogy. Now we have a question from Toastmaster Adarsh. Now this is something which I think all Toastmasters would want to know. How do you tackle procrastination on putting things down on paper? Could you give a few tips? And I would go with Michelle on this. Yes, Michelle.
I think if the project is exciting enough, you will avoid the writer's block. The writer's block is something that you have that mindset where you feel the fear or the lack of confidence to put something on paper. That's why I said, I dream about what I want to write. I take that time to really be like, I really want to do this. This is why my why is. I go after the why. And then all of a sudden ideas start flowing because I know I'm a good writer, right? I know I'm a good writer because I'm a good speaker. Toastmaster shows because I keep winning awards. Best table topics master, best speaker, best evaluator, right? So those ideas allow me to know that I can speak well. I can also write well. And so having that imagination, that visualization helps me realize that these ideas will flow through. Samir, your turn.
Okay, let me choose a question for Samir. Now this is from Toastmaster Abida. She is also co-authoring a book, and it's called 27 Tales. So it's just got delayed in publishing. But her question is that if she has collected information for content from different people, do I have to give credit to them? It's a question, Samir, you need to take this.
Yes, you must.
Okay, so if the content is being reproduced as it is, 100% you need to give credit to them. So that is something important. Now we have
A very easy way to, once again, a very easy way to look at it is like this. If you have put your heart and soul in writing a book, Abida, and then somebody comes and rips it off and puts it or displays it as their idea, how would you feel? Right?
Absolutely.
We would all not feel. So we just have to honor the creative process of somebody else and respect that and just acknowledge that. And that's it. And you can say that this is, I've been inspired by this. Or that's why you would see in every book at the footnote or at the back of the book, acknowledgements, or you would see. So it's
like a writer's code. It's like a writer's code. We don't plagiarize things, or we give credit. So that's amazing. Now, Midhat, our MC, has a question. Should one get feedback on one's writing before going to a publisher? I would like to add one more line. If so, who do we go to? This is for Michelle.
I say go with someone that you trust, someone that's going to give you an unbiased opinion, someone that sees you for who you are, appreciates who you are, and that allows you to see your strengths. And that's why I went to my friends first before I went to my family, because my friends would give me that unbiased opinion. They know me for who I am. They encourage me to be the best version. So I always went to my friends and said, hey, I'm writing this. Can you proofread? And I did get those drafts. They said, your tenses are off, or they'll say something. And I said, thank you for telling me, because that's what I needed to hear at that moment, right? So trust that, find that network, right? I said earlier, find your network, because those are the ones that are going to support you the most. Thank you.
Samir, the next question coming your way. This is from Toastmaster Eugene. She says, can you tell me about some softwares which I can use to write my book?
Microsoft Word.
Okay, so it's simple enough. Do you have anything else in mind? Anything which by magic will write all the chapters? No, I mean, jokes apart, there are some other softwares for writers which can help you probably be grammatically correct, tenses and many other things. So are you using any such software?
So I'm using Grammarly. Grammarly is already installed on my computer, and that is something that by default is being used.
Okay.
There was another tool on my Mac, which a friend of mine recommended to me, but I don't use it, and I don't remember what it is called. But what it does is it actually shows you the word limit, and there is a tool. It's a very good question, actually, because
Michelle, if you know, you can comment on this by the time he's
what it does. Let me explain what it does. What it does is it grades your writing. It grades your writing, and it says, would a graduate understand it? Would a non-graduate understand it? Would a 5-year-old understand it? Would a 10-year-old understand it? It would just grade, and it would show the simplicity of your language and how you're communicating an idea. And therefore, you would know exactly how you want to place the book. Are you writing for that particular audience? Then yes, you should be. So my book, like I said, I wanted even my kids who were 12 to understand after reading the book. So I kept the language really very simple. My audience is really youngsters who are launching off into their life and going out there and getting all these self-help tools in a very nice, concise story format. So it was very important for me to keep the language very easy to digest. So there is a tool. I don't remember the name right now. I can figure it out and I can let know later.
No problem. Michelle, do you remember anything which what Samir is describing? Do you have any such software that you use?
I love Microsoft Word and Google Docs.
Okay,
those
fantastic.
are my two
so
favorite
I think let's not complicate our lives. Google Doc, Microsoft Word and Grammarly are something that which you can usually use. Samir will find the answer and we will share it later once he finds that software. But there's a very interesting question. I will give it to Michelle to start with. but Samir can add to that later because it's a detailed question. It is by our club road director, DTM Rania. She says, I work in the medical field and most of the content of my daily life is more of technical content that could be considered by most people as boring. So how can I sizzle the content and create a book that can be interesting? Michelle.
Add emotions. When it's
Yes.
the technical aspect of it, it is very logic based. And so to add to that human aspect of it, you add emotions to it. Talk about the excitement of the day, talk about the things that you're going through internally, express that, and that's going to create the content. And just because it's boring to you doesn't mean it's going to be boring to the audience, because that one person might be looking for that one key that you're looking for, that you might be writing about. So don't add those self-beliefs onto your content that you're writing, because you never know who's going to be the audience, and that could be the lifesaver for them. So add the emotions. It always sells.
Fantastic. Samir, you want to add anything quickly?
Yes, there is a book which is called When Breath Becomes Air, I think, which was recently written. And the doctor who wrote it, Paul Kalanidhi, I think he passed away. He was a heart surgeon or something in the US. And he is a doctor as well. And there are so many books on the medical field, medical profession. There's this author called Robin Cook, again, who writes a lot about what happens behind hospitals. You can make it interesting, like what Michelle said, again, add emotions or drama, but it again is, where do you want the book in the bookstore? It's placed next to the research category? Is it placed next to the fiction category? Is it placed in self-help? Where in the bookstore is the book going to be placed? Is there a book that is similar? It need not be about audiology. It could be about something else, but what is the closest that a book is there in a bookstore to your book? And when you know and when you can pick that up, then you start reading it from the perspective of how they wrote that book. Like I said, no, be a good reader, identify what is the style that they have adopted to write that book, and then ask yourself, how can I adopt those styles into my book? If it has to be a heavy book and your audience is people who are in your profession, then you would write in a different format. And if the content that you wish to write does not exist in a bookstore, but only in research libraries, then you would write it according to that. So you would just have to choose first where you want the book to be. Is it in libraries and research institutes, or in a borders or whatever? So once you know that exactly where your book is placed, then you would come up with the cover design, you would come up with the content, how many pages and all that stuff. It would just start flowing, and you would, easy way to say it, break down the process. Break down the process of writing, and don't be overwhelmed with the entire overall project.
Thank you,
Take one
Samir.
box at a time.
Yeah, now the question is coming to you, Samir. We have last few minutes left. Let's make the most of it. This question is from Toastmaster Prabhakar. It's an interesting question. In the evolving digital and social media age, what is changing about writing in the author's opinion, apart from paper versus digital publishing? So how do you see role of an author or a career of an author changing because of the social and digital media landscape? Yes, Samir.
So writing opens up many doors, many opportunities. And the number one thing that it does is it reveals you as a person to the outside world. For the longest period of time, until you don't write a book, you're living in your own head and with the people around you and who know you directly. With the writing of a book, what happens is you open a floodgate of opportunities. It becomes your wildcard entry into conversations. It becomes your wildcard entry into meeting new people. It becomes your introduction to meeting interesting people and meeting the right kind of people that you want to meet. So it is limitless. In fact, it is only limited by what your imagination is hitting with in terms of the ceiling. But otherwise, you stop living in your head and you start living outside in the world in the more authentic fashion. And I think writers open up a whole new opportunity for themselves. And I think Toastmasters especially have such an amazing opportunity because they're surrounded with stories every single day. And especially because of the Zoom meetings, because of this digital. Robin, you have been attending so many meetings. You have tons of books inside you by now, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone attends. Rania also, I mean, the amount of meetings that you guys attend, hardly anyone attends. And if you just start trying to compile and ask yourself, how can I extract value out of what I am gaining so that I can give it to other people? If you're asking that question to yourself, and then you start filling out, you'll start seeing pages and pages will start flowing out. I always say at my events, apply the principles of ACT when you're listening to any conversation, any speech, or anything. A stands for apply. What can you apply from what you just heard in your life? C is what can you change about the way you're doing things? And T is what can you teach someone from what you just heard or learned? And if you're doing the three things, then what happens is the book is a very natural extension of all that. It's just putting together for others to take value.
Thank you, Samir. So now we are going to take the last question. We still have a lot more questions which have been unanswered. What we'll do is we'll compile all these questions, and we'll also be sharing some details about the authors today, the panelists today, about what they've done and their email IDs. You can also get in touch with them individually, and with their timelines, they will try and get back to you. This is the last question I'm going to take. Sorry to all the others, but we could only take so many questions. It's by Cienlia. She says, what are common traps? This is for Michelle Yu. What are common traps for aspiring writers? Do you want each book to stand on its own, or are you trying to build a body of work with connections between each book? That's an interesting question.
When I wrote the first book, I didn't think there was going to be a second book. I thought that was going to be the one and for all. Universe works in magical ways. I didn't realize that in 2020, the year of the quarantine and the pandemic, a second book was going to be released 6 months apart. So with that, no two books were going to be connected because I didn't have a part two. My job was to build the credibility, to have the international bestselling author for my bio, and the chapter is closed and move on with my life. Did not realize that it was going to be a writing year. Super grateful for it, beyond grateful for it. Wouldn't have asked it another way. So sometimes, yeah, there could be a part two if you feel like the story needs to continue. We had that in movies, right? We have Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond. So just like that, what is it that you want to share with the audience, right? There is like the 5 love languages for work, for career, for personal. Right? Again, what is it that you want? What is the end goal that you have with that book? So I did not want them to be connected, which is why I wrote one about dating and one about career. 2 major aspects of my life, 2 very bumpy, rocky roads. But I had to choose one or the other with the time limit and the word limit that I had, 3,000 words. There's only so much I can say. So thank you for that.
So thank you. Let me officially thank both the panelists for profound, interesting, insightful, introspective. You shared everything. I'm sure people who've attended today have enjoyed themselves. So thank you so much to all of you. Now we would like to quickly show some slides about both these authors, and then we will give it back to Midhat, the MC for the day. So can I request Anup to just show the slides? So this is Michelle Mehta for you. This is how she looks when she's on a cover. These are her 2 books, and that's her email ID. You can take a snapshot of this. And now we could show the Samir's slide. So this is Samir for you. And these are the 2 books, The Planner and The Awesome Cup. And this is email ID. So feel free to contact him, read his books, buy his books. So thank you to both of you. It's been wonderful having you. So this, even if you can put it also on the chat box, Anup, then maybe people can download it and it will be easier for them to access it. So thank you so much. And with this, I would like to hand over the session back to Midhat. It was a pleasure interviewing both of you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself. I hope people did. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you so much, Robin. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Midhat, take it away.
Thank you so much, DTM Robin, for conducting it so beautifully and brilliantly. And I love the session. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Michelle and Toastmaster Samir. And Toastmaster Samir is it's always a pleasure listening to him because it's always full of wisdom, yet it's so humble and genuine, coming directly from the heart. So thank you so much for all for all three of you for gracing us this morning, and for DTM Robin for conducting this session. It was indeed a candid conversation with two individuals, different thinking, but yet fruitful. Now it's time to hand over the stage to another interesting person, a very creative soul, another humble soul, I'd say. Now, he is someone who I've worked under his leadership. So I'd say that yes, he is a creative soul, a very calm person, just like our host of the morning. He has been into Toastmasters for 3 years. He is a member of Gardens Toastmasters Club and Pond Park Advanced Toastmasters Club. Currently, he is serving as the Assistant Division Director of Division L, District 105. And all the lovely, creative, and eye-catching stuff that you see released by Division L has been done under his supervision and under his leadership. Now, he is someone who always amazes us with his creativity. There's always something new to learn from him. And he's never short when you have to reach out to him for any help. He's always there to support and guide you. So please put your hands together for Toastmaster Anup to do the vote of thanks for the morning. Over
Thank
to
you so much. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Midat, for that wonderful introduction. Now, good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. That was Candid Conversations. And the focus today we had was how to become a published author. So, on behalf of Division L, I would like to thank Toastmaster Michelle for joining us and sharing your insights with all of us. And I'm sure all the aspiring authors in the room, and also all the people who are going to watch this video on our YouTube channel, will be blessed, and they will have great takeaway message from watching this and also taking their journey forward. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure you have awakened all the authors in us. Next, I would like to thank, on behalf of Division L, Toastmaster Samir for sharing your experience with all of us. You have enriched the conversation that with your unique perspectives and showing us the pathway to become an author. Awesome indeed. Thank you. Last but not the least, our dear host, DTM Robin Anand. Thank you so much. When our division director, Stephen George, came up with this idea of having this candid conversation series, and with this specific focus, and when he said that you are going to be the host for this particular event, I said, this is going to be magical. It's going to be great value for all Toastmasters. And I'm sure all of us feel it today. Thank you so much for conducting this session with great panache and, of course, enthusiasm. You bring so much to this table, and thank you so much. Hope to see you again on another round of candid conversation. Thank you so much. And I also acknowledge that there are other dignitaries in the room. Our dear Club Growth Director, Rania. I would like to invite her to say a few words, share her thoughts on this particular event. Yes.
Thank you so much, Anup, and thank you all for this wonderful morning session. And I just wanted to attend here like any other member. Thank you all for the insights, Michelle and Samir, and of course, Robin, you've done a fantastic job. You're an excellent moderator, buddy. Well done. And I really like the interactions, and I think all of us here would like to start this writing experience, I'd say, or adventure, I would call it myself, especially for someone like me who's from the medical boring field. But thank you for inspiring me to to give it a start and think about it, because as you said, we all have stories to share and experience, but sometimes it just goes by the way. We never think about it. And the only thing is only for inspirational people, coaches, not for people who come from the medical or the technical field. But that's not true, actually. We all have something to add and contribute to the world. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I've learned a lot. I've really enjoyed every bit of it. And I wish you all the best, both of you. And I hope to see your books lined up next to Robin Sharma and all these big names, and more success to everyone here in the house. Wishing you all the best, my dear friends. God bless you. Stay safe always. Thank you. Over to you, Anu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rania, for those kind words. And with that, we would like to wrap up. But last but not the least, I would also like to acknowledge my co-host, Toastmaster Midat, for this wonderful support that you have led. Thank you so much. And thank you, audience. That's a wrap up.